Hey there, Bears fans. It's my favorite day of the week. That's right. It's Friday yet again. And before we get to the weekend, we need another episode of the CHGO Bears Podcast presented by PointSpet. Use promo code CHGO when you sign up to get two risk-free bets up to $2,000. And what is going on, Bears fans? I'm your host today, Will DeWitt. Nicholas Moreano is right here with me. And Nick, it's just the two of us here today. How's it going, man? What's up?
It is just the two of us. I'm good. How are you, Will? Is it raining over in Indiana by you? Because I feel like all week it's been this crappy weather and you just can't do anything.
Yeah, it's grody. I'm ready for spring and just to do things outside yet again. You have a softball and you're already kind of getting ready for that league that we'll be partaking in throughout the spring and summer months here. And, I wish I lived closer so I can play some softball. That's why I told Kevin and Jake. So give it a year and you guys can definitely be, graced by my presence on the softball field.
Yeah, I mean, I've never played like an actual in a league, so I'm like I bought two of these and just haven't had a chance to use them. And I'm getting, like I said, the weather just needs to improve so we can get out there. I guess you could go in the rain if you're really dedicated, but nah, I'm good. I'll wait till it gets a little bit warmer so we can get the practicing going.
Two softballs. That's too easy. So I will pass on that. I wouldn't actually get like what the hell's going on. I leave the show for a few days because that's how the schedule works out. And what's up with all this basketball slander, man?
I look, so when Adam asked me, I'm like at that moment, I'm like, I don't know if I've ever seen Will play, and that was just just kind of deer in the headlights, and that was basically the answer. But look, I blame Adam Hogue, like I told you in that tweet. Will, I also have a little. I don't know if anybody could see this on here. This little subliminal message I have on my board back here, but basically it says Adam Hogue, work on your shot. Because obviously he's not here, and that's probably what he's doing, right? Well, just getting ready for the basketball league. But yes, that looked bad. But hey, let's get out of the court and go win that 2v2 tournament.
Yeah. The thing was, like, you weren't wrong. Like, the highest organized basketball I played was fourth grade. And I seen your videos on Facebook of you just draining, three after three after three. And if I can get hot, it's just rare when those instances happen. I have a few, one-on-one glory days, but your assessment wasn't too far off, or at least your lack of assessment, like how it all kind of came to be. I'm really good at 2K, and by really good, I'm average. So either way, there's a reason why I do a football podcast.
Gotcha. Well, hey, I'll take it to the lane against like Olin and Jason McKee, and I'll dish it out back to you, and we're just gonna get you hot early on, and I think we'll be all right. But yeah, we'll have to get that going. I feel like there's been so much basketball talk. Mason West was on the show last Friday. He wants to get in on that. I know there are other people in the Bears Twitter community that want to. I think would like to see that. So at some point we'll have to find an open gym and see what ends up happening. Hopefully no one leaves like injured, because that's the worst thing. You're doing something for fun and you don't want anyone on like crutches or having to bring out the tape or the wheelchair. Like just have a nice fun little outing, and if you come out on top, that'll make it even better.
Yeah, Olin and Jason, like imagine them setting picks. Like they're brick walls compared to us. Like we're not going anywhere. But you mentioned injuries. Do you recall like when you got messed up playing basketball? Was that like 4 or 5 years ago now? Like I was thinking about that. Like you showed the video like of you going up and then just
Yeah.
landing and there's blood and hopefully nothing like that happens.
Yeah, like that was bad. I was playing just at Glenbrook South where I used to work, and see, I should have just made the shot. It was a little floater to end the game, and then I miss it and end up trying to go get the rebound, and I leave my feet, and another, I think it was my teammate also going for the ball, hits me. My head was the basketball on the court, bounce. I'm like, oh, okay, this is fine. And then you feel the blood. Like I have a couple of stitches. Actually, I got messed up playing football back in the day, backyard football, just a bunch of high school buddies, and then basketball as well. But yeah, so I don't want any of that. No more stitches playing recreational basketball. I'm all good with that.
There you go. You're like Kelso on that 70s show, like always with his eye getting hurt. By the way, Ashton Kutcher, Bears fan, come on the podcast anytime you would like. Ashton,
Iowa,
yeah,
University of Iowa. Yep.
yep.
So
See,
I'm all for it.
two strong connections there. But Nick, it's great catching up. We can definitely talk more this weekend about our personal lives, but there's news. Like there's actual news for us to talk about, and I'm so excited. Like I didn't even know because I went to bed with the baby way before it happened, and you woke up and you're like, hey, well, we have two new players to discuss. So I spent my entire morning looking into these guys, and even though they're again kind of following the same pedigree that we've seen so far throughout this free agency from Ryan Poles. I'm excited by both of these players, and we'll find out if you are too here, Nick. So the Bears have signed defensive back Tavon Young from the Ravens and tight end Ryan Griffin, both of them on very minimal 1-year deals between the two. And we'll talk about both these players in length, but I want to kick it to you. Which one do you think can have the bigger impact in that season, and why?
I have to go with Tavon Young just because he did have a breakout 2018 season, Will, and he was at the time received the highest contract for a nickel corner because of that season, a 3-year, 25.8 million. So he had that upside. But as everyone who probably has done the research up to this point on Tavon Young, it's like injuries have really derailed him from becoming, I think, the player that he's capable of being, that feisty slot corner who's able to just make plays on the football field. But if if you take injuries out of the equation, like the Bears, you could just plug and play at this point. Being someone that spent 6 seasons in Baltimore, he has the upside. But like a couple of the players that the Bears have brought in, they have had some kind of history that's prevented them from, maybe having that longevity or maybe even still remaining on their previous team. And now that's why they're with the Bears. So I have to go with Tavon Young for who can have the bigger impact if healthy.
If healthy. Luckily for us, I think, he was very healthy last season after battling it for a few different years. I know he tore his ACL in 2017. Then he had a neck injury in 2019. And unfortunately, yet again in 2020, the same ACL tore. And this is when I wish we had Mason on today, so we can learn what happens when you tear that thing twice and what's the likelihood of it happening again. And the good news is, like, we've had him on so much, I know like about compensation and how that can lead to like other injuries along the body because of overcompensating for the lack of that tendon over, again, being torn twice. But Nick, for a guy that had to deal with all those injuries, came back last season and played well, that shows me that he is resilient, which is a key word that we'll be talking about more in the very, the last segment here on our show. But what I love about this guy is the fact that he's well respected in Baltimore as well. He's loved by the community, super active, involved in there. Also very appreciated and loved by his teammates. So he's a very strong locker room presence. He's known for being a warrior, coming back from those injuries. He won their Ed Block Courage Award winner last season. So he is definitely someone that has all that character makeup that the Bears are looking to kind of bring in to Hollis Hall, as well as, like you said, the on-field production when he is healthy. It's there. It's a definite upgrade over Duke Shelley, Marquis Christian, everyone that they're trying to throw at the nickel position last year. And what I like about him on the field is in zone, he's quick to read. He can watch the quarterback's eyes. He can lay a hit on a receiver with the ball too. And then again, as well, he's physical. He's aggressive. They can use him as a blitzer coming off of the slot. So there's another guy that they brought in with that same kind of mold. So I definitely see the fit on the field. I see it in terms of like the culture, the makeup, the character that this guy possesses as well. And I think all the way around, it's a signing that, it's a low risk, potentially. I'm not going to say high reward, but like a medium high reward could be definitely possible with this one.
Yeah, and like the thing too, Will, it's like we've seen some of these signings, and look, you don't even know necessarily if they're going to be starters on this Bears team, but like a guy like Tavon Young, there's no special teams really value that he's going to bring to this team. He had 7 snaps last season on special teams, so that's out of the equation. So you're bringing him to compete at that nickel corner spot, a position that's currently wide open for the Bears. So you bring all the intangibles he has, the locker room presence, that resiliency factor that, Ryan Poles is now looking for in current Bears players. It just fits exactly what is kind of being, asked of in this new Bears regime. So it's just all about the injuries. If he can just stay healthy, and he did in 2021, but the history shows that it's, there's been some major injuries, like you said, the neck, the knee twice. So if that's past him, man, maybe this could be like what the Bears exactly needed, and their patience, right? They've been preaching patience and not signing these big ticket, guys, and maybe you land somebody like this in a Tavon Young, and now you can see where it could potentially go.
I will save some of my comments on that for later, because you gave me a link to a really great article on The Athletic that kind of explains like where the Bears are at and how they're being perceived around the league. And I think, being patient is obviously one that people see, but I have a good analogy that I'll share. One last thing on Young. I saw a comment like, what's the deal worth? I couldn't find anything here yet today. I don't expect it to be a lot of money, so I wouldn't worry about polls, backing up the Brinks truck to bring Young over to Chicago. But the two things I wanted to mention that I think proves that he can just be a difference maker in Chicago. And it, again, helping the nickel position doesn't take a lot compared to last year, but he doesn't get picked on nearly as much as like a Duke Shelley did. Like quarterbacks can't force the ball his way because he does play better coverage. And then after the catch, he does limit, the yardage afterwards. So he won't be picked on a lot. And then when he does allow a catch, he's not allowing them to pick up all those additional yardage that we saw. So that should just help the entire Bears defense and secondary, all the way around. So those are just two other things I just wanted to kind of highlight real quickly on Young. But I want to move over to like a Ryan Griffin. He was just released by the Jets 4 days ago, and the Bears really didn't waste much time to bring him here to Chicago. He is 32 years old. He's a longtime vet, drafted in 2013, primarily like an inline type of tight end. And one thing I really like, Nick, and I'll hand it over to you about what you like, it's just that over half of his yards last year, 261 total, 145, so over half came after the catch, which again, last season, Cole Kmet did that decently, but I still believe there's more on the table. He left some yards there that we should have been able to pick up. And we all knew, Jimmy Graham was not that type of player at all at this stage of his career. So someone that can be a difference maker, taking some of those shorter yardage plays and gaining those additional yards, getting all that yak is something that I really like about him. What are your thoughts about Ryan Griffin being a Chicago Bear, adding to this tight end room yet another veteran?
Yeah, so initially what came to mind when I saw the name Ryan Griffin, for some reason, I thought of Peter Griffin. And there, again, no connection. Like, I don't know. That just came to mind. And I don't remember the last time I watched Family Guy, but Peter Griffin popped up in my head. I'm like, all right, Nick, let's get to the football stuff now. But yeah, it made sense why the Jets actually released them, especially because they brought in Tyler Conklin and Ozuma from the Bengals. So they had to just get younger at the position. But spent 6 seasons in Houston and then the last 3 with the Jets. And like you say, primarily lined up as that inline tight end, 415 snaps out of his 583 offensive snaps, according to PFF. And his offensive coordinator with the Jets was Mike LaFleur. Obviously, Matt LaFleur's younger brother. But before Mike, who was the offensive coordinator with the Jets, he spent 3 seasons with the 49ers, coming from that Shanahan tree. And kind of connecting all the dots here, the Bears have Luke Getsy, Shanahan tree. Like, could the Bears use... Yeah, exactly. We should have had like maybe some kind of diagram. It would just go all over the place. But using, again, a Ryan Griffin in that type of role as well, because Cole Kmet was a guy that also lined up primarily in line. He had 498 snaps as the inline tight end. And Cole Kmet had 320 also in the slot. So again, another primary inline tight end. But you look at this signing, you look at the guys that they brought from Tennessee, the fullback, and Matt Eberflus has talked about wanting to commit to this run game and mentioned David Montgomery. I just feel like this season, the Bears are really going to commit to that. And they're kind of subtly making these small signings to indicate that. And now is that going to be like the identity, like this physical presence on offense as they're still trying to figure out who Justin Fields is going to throw to? That's kind of how I see like a Ryan Griffin fitting into what the Bears see him as, especially being, like you said, a veteran. He does have some special team experience as well, playing 193 snaps on special teams for the Jets last season, 42.3%. So I wonder if that's how the Bears are kind of envisioning a Ryan Griffin kind of adding to the roster.
Another veteran for Kmet to learn from, but I do expect him to have a role in this offense. He's only a couple years away from a career season. 2019, he caught 88% of his targets, 34 catches on 39 balls that were thrown his way. So I went back and I was watching a few of his games this morning. What was he doing so well? Because that's a really consistent number, and that you don't usually see, receivers, let alone even tight ends, catch over 85% of their targets for an entire season. And what I see is someone that is a middle of the field presence. He knows how to find the soft spot and sit, catch and then to run upfield. He's a very tough runner with the football in his hands. On top of that, he's a seam threat, right down the middle of the field for this offense. And he's kind of shifty. There's a play against Jacksonville that season where he caught the ball around the line of scrimmage. The linebacker came up to make a tackle, just kind of gave him a little shimmy, and then he was able to take it 25 yards to the house from there. I think one of his bigger strengths, I know run blocking is one of them, but as a receiver, he just has a really strong feel for just space overall, understanding leverage near the goal line, boxing out guys. And on top of that, the yard after the catch is something, again, I keep hitting on, but I think it's not special, but it is a big, strong suit for him. You'll see a few plays where he's like blocking, releasing, heading to the flat, catching it in stride, able to turn upfield and gain 12, 15 yards on a ball that only traveled like 5 through the air, primarily horizontal to this tight end. Now Sam Darnold playing quarterback as well. Just want to, throw that one out there too. He's really tough, catches in traffic too. And a lot of the time it felt like he was like the forgotten man, like the defenses like forgot to cover. And again, it makes sense. Like, Ryan Griffin, you thought of Peter Griffin. I thought who at the time as well. So if defenses are going to focus more on a Mooney, maybe another young receiver that the Bears draft, a Cole Kmet, and you go out there in some 2 tight end sets, and he's able to, find some open space, take it and run for it and get some additional yards. Like, there's value in a guy like that in this offense. And he does have really good red zone production. 2019, he was 4th in the NFL with 6 red zone touchdowns. He did that on 7 targets inside of the 20, and everyone above him and the next 4 guys below him in that top 10 all had double-digit targets. So making the most of limited opportunities. And what kind of derailed him after that 2019 season? Injuries. 2019, towards the end, he tore a ligament in his ankle. Then he started the 2020 season on the PUP, had a down year, just didn't really come back to the same level of play, but he did bounce back in 2021 last season. His last 7 games, he had 17 catches and 190 yards. So proving some resiliency, yet again, another character trait that the Bears are really hitting on. So I like this one a lot.
It makes sense. And Joseph actually had a good comment earlier, like always good to have veterans in every room. And, for the most part, Cole Kmet has had that. I just wish the Bears would have veterans at wide receiver and also at the tackle position, because that's where I think that veteran presence can definitely add to the overall team, especially at positions that have such young players at the moment, but definitely like that. And, adding a tight, because look, the Bears, they were the joke of the NFL when they had 9 tight ends on their, or some crazy number at one point. And now this is number 3? Be Jesper, Cole, and now Ryan Griffin here. So they're starting to build that up. And like I say, he does have that special teams value as well. So you just need guys. You need to build up this roster. They're going to go into camp in a few weeks here. It's like Ryan Poles, you need to actually have enough guys to run the camp. So here you go. There's another person that can definitely add to that, but also add that value that you were just talking about, Will.
I think that both these guys will make the roster. I know it's really early, but just looking at who they are, what they've been able to accomplish, and where their careers at, what the Bears are trying to just do for this 1 year, I expect them to both be here come the final 53. And I know it's way too early to project that, but just kind of what my gut's telling me right now. Real quickly, Nick, we need to talk about a visit that the Bears had a player come in. He went to Iowa, so I guess I'll let you to say who he is, what your thoughts are about him, and then I'll kind of share, mine as well before we get to our first break.
Yeah, so Brad Biggs from the Chicago Tribune reported that Anthony Hitchens had a visit with the Bears yesterday. Linebacker, spent the last 4 seasons with the Chiefs, drafted by the Cowboys in 2014. Matt Eberflus was a linebackers coach. There's the lines. Will's connected them. Was a linebackers coach with the Cowboys at that time. He was a captain for the Chiefs, and Ryan Poles coming from Kansas City. So, and now the line coming back to Chicago, potentially. And look, I was looking at who do the Bears right now even have in that linebacking room, and it was a little bit, I guess the list was longer than I was anticipating, but we'll see if some of these guys are honestly going to be on the roster when it's all said and done. Like a Jeremiah Tachu. Like, Will, I know last year's scheme, it would have worked, right, for a 3-4 outside linebacker. Here, I don't know if he fits. And we didn't get a chance to really see him with the injury, which is unfortunate for Jeremiah Tachu. Then you have, and I'm just going alphabetically here. So Noah Dawkins, I don't know if that moves the needle any. Caleb Johnson showed some things, right? Sam Kamara, Nicholas Morrow, who the Bears obviously signed to play the Mike, we'll still see how that all gets figured out. It could be interchangeable, to be completely honest. Roquan Smith, Charles Snowden, and I know we talked about him on the last show, and
we entertained like the Sam thing, but I saw a comment and it made sense. Like, I forgot how tall and freakishly imposing he is, and so he would still fit better as like a defensive end in this defense. I still think Jeremiah Tachu fits better as a hand in the dirt rusher than he would Sam Backer, and that's what I see about Hitchens. Like, I can see him being a 1 to 2 year Sam linebacker in this defense. I mean, he's getting a little up there in age, but the Sam Backer won't be on the field a lot. He doesn't need to be. Because when I was watching him in Dallas, like, he was playing the Mike, he was playing a little bit of the Sam as well, and he knows this defense, so it's not going to take him long to kind of get up to speed. And he's a strong, physical linebacker that when you put in there rundowns, great. Like, you have another imposing guy that can go out there, and he has a knack of making plays, behind the line of scrimmage. I feel like every season he's able to put up a decent number over there as well, and he's really durable. Only missing 10 games since 2017. He has 6 straight years of 78 or more tackles. And he's also averaged 6 tackles for a loss and 4 quarterback hits per season over that same span. So if they can find the way to make this one work, this would be a home run, honestly. Like, someone that can teach Roquan, not that Roquan needs a mentor per se, but someone who knows this defense they could be a sounding board for would be really helpful. And I think he just fits the profile of what the Bears are going to do. And if Eberflus signs off on him, Poles signs off on him, and they see the fit, and I see the fit as the Sam Backer on this defense, let's go. Sign me up.
Yeah, no, it makes too much sense for it to not happen, to be completely honest, Will. Like, at some point, you just, especially when you get later into like free agency and things like that, it's like, why are they bringing in the people that they're bringing in? The connections, the lines, the connecting of the dots, like we were just kind of illustrating earlier. So it makes sense in that regard. And again, I like all those other names I listed off, and I saw somebody in the chat say, hey, they also have Ladarius Mack, they do, and a guy named Joe Thomas, not the one who played for the Browns long time ago. But but it makes sense. I think this would be a good sign. And the key part too, Will, like you mentioned, the Sam linebacker is not going to be on the field all too much in this defense. You're going to be primarily in like that nickel package. So you're not getting like this wear and tear on there. But if you want somebody that you know is going to be sound in their assignments, is going to get the job done, can add that veteran presence like we were talking about for the tight end room with Ryan, then you can get a nice addition with a guy like Hitchens.
Yeah, he's again, like I said, he's a strong player. He's a hard hitter. He plays football with a real passion. You see it out there, and I think the Bears are looking for more guys like that as well. And he's good at making plays in the open space. So if he's out there and they swing it to the back, I would expect him to be able to pick it up and corral it rather seamlessly. And again, if he's on there and primarily running downs, why not get a bigger body type of guy? And when you think about this defense and you have to go back to like the Lovie Smith days, like who would this be? I can see him being like that Hunter Hillemeyer, right here for us. So I'm for it. Like I said, sign me up. We'll see if it comes to fruition. I saw someone in the chat said like, hey, he'll be signed before the end of the day. Bring it. Like, I'd be more than happy with the Bears getting some good momentum of bringing in those guys that they've identified, they've scouted, and we're at that point in the offseason where they're willing to bring them in here. I was going to say like the third wave of free agency. I don't even know if like we're waves anymore. It's like more like a wake, like a little ripple.
I think so. And the most important thing, Will, you're bringing another Iowa guy. So that's just the cherry on top to bring in an Anthony Hitchens.
Well, my school's IU is where I went. We would not be a good football team if we're just bringing in players from IU, but we did get Shane McMahon's son, Vince McMahon's grandson, to commit to IU. So I'll be having to like walk around downtown Bloomington whenever football games are going on, see if I could run into, some like WWE type of greats. But we need to let you know a little bit about, how you can support CHGO. And really the best way is to download the PointSpet app and use the code CHGO when you sign up. And if you do that right now, you'll get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. But That's not it. If you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our web content, and you'll even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker. That's $2,000 in free bets, a free CHGO membership, and a free t-shirt from the CHGO locker, all for making a more than $50 first-time deposit at PointSpet. And if you have any questions, you can email pointspet@allchgo.com, and we'll make sure to help you out so you can kind of, score this sweet deal. You're home for live in-play betting just got even better. Introducing PointsBet's new feature, live NBA same game parlays. For the first time ever, you can build the perfect live NBA same game parlay only with PointsBet. Combine your favorite bets anytime during the game. And if you want more, you can also boost your live same game parlays so you can watch live, parlay live, and boost live with PointsBet. And now online signup is available in Illinois. You can download the PointsBet app right now and register your account from start to finish, all from your phone. So what are you waiting for? Once the game starts, don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. All right, you're listening to the CHGO Bears Podcast. Nick is still kind of bouncing that softball around here on the screen, and I'm excited for this next segment. I don't know about you. We kind of just threw the idea when I was up in Chicago last week, out there just kind of like, messing around. And here it is. And I think it's going to be a fun little segment for us. What do you think?
Yeah, I actually mentioned it to Adam Hogue, I think 2 or 3 days ago. He's like, wow, that's a really good idea. I'm like, yeah, we'll have to do it at some point. And now we're unveiling it today.
And I think it's a fun segment for a Friday. It's light. We're having to kind of like use our heads and think about this. And people are like, what are you guys talking about? So I'll let you know like what this segment is. And we're going to a workshop. We're going to Build-A-Bear, Nick. We are going to build.
I've never been.
I made one for my wife when we were just dating, and I didn't want to put my voice in it. And the recording still is like, boy, I didn't want to do that. But then AJ got one on my son, and he likes it. So definitely, if you ever have a kid, go to Build-A-Bear and have him or her build that perfect stuffed animal. But we need to build a perfect Chicago Bears wide receiver. And we're going all-time Bears here to build one out. And, we thought about expanding it to the entire NFL, but I thought that'd be too easy. Like, okay, Randy Moss this and Jerry Rice that. Exactly. So let's make it a little bit more difficult. So let's build a Bears wide receiver. Nick, do you want to build yours first?
So do you want me to go start to finish, or do we want to go like each part? I guess we didn't.
This is where Lawrence needs to pop in and let us know how it's built for the graphic. I think it's all going to be unveiled.
Yeah, hi. How you doing?
Hey.
The graphic is just one full screen with everything on there. So why don't we go top to bottom? And cool. Nick, you give us your whole bear. Sound good?
All right.
That bear.
Yeah.
Build them up.
First time building a bear, and we're gonna start here. And as you can see, I'm starting with, and we did this obviously in 5 different parts, starting with the head, Darnell Mooney. And how Will and I discussed this is like somebody with football IQ, how they kind of perceive themselves on and off the field. And I went with Darnell Mooney because as such a young player, you see so many great qualities about him. Had a couple of experiences being in press conferences with the guy, and it always has a good head on his shoulders, right? In terms of how he's answering these questions, what he wants to do in his career. So that's kind of why I went with Darnell Mooney at the top there. And then the body. Like, I'm thinking of someone who could take hits. Who's somebody that embodies that toughness? Tom Waddle, right? He's played 6 years with the Bears. I was watching the highlights from the December 29th, 1991 playoff game versus the Dallas Cowboys, where Dallas did win 17-13. But man, Tom Waddle was taking some hits. Like, again, he had 9 receptions under 4 yards, and the one touchdown that he had, nobody actually hit him. So thank goodness. But Tom Waddle, man, that's just a warrior, I would definitely say. Categorize him then. So that's why I went with the body there. Hands, Brandon Marshall, a guy that caught 279 passes while he was a Bear, a 60.4 catch percentage, 31 touchdowns. And I was debating here, like I have Allen Robinson at the feet. I'm like, do I want to put A-Rob there at the hands? But I thought Brandon Marshall would be a better fit. And then legs, I thought of legs, Will. I know we didn't discuss this as just pure speed. Mm-hmm. And so let me get Devin Hester on the field. Obviously wasn't, the most dynamic wide receiver. But still, if you've sent Devin Hester on a vertical route, I like my chances on whoever the DB is, just because he's probably going to further the distance from that cornerback. Then the feet. Allen Robinson, I know at the end of the career, people didn't have a very good perspective on him, but the guy got open and he would get open off the line of scrimmage despite not having the best speed. So I finished it off with Allen Robinson and the feet.
So people have the same thoughts I did. I get that you wanted like a warrior tough body, but are you sure a 6 foot, 185 pound receiver? Like that's it?
So yeah, for the body, like I just put categorized as toughness, not like more so height,
No, we're going for
weight.
the body. Like, come on.
See, that's what's like we didn't talk about this. I asked about like the head, like what you're thinking about for their like football IQ and stuff. But I just like who you want taking shots, who shows that toughness. That's how I went with it. And I guess
It's
had I
okay.
gone
Like
different,
I like the different perspectives, but when I saw your list, I was like, like I went a totally different direction for a good reason. And then the only other one I'm curious about, you said, who's taking shots. Maybe you were during like Marshall's tenure here, because I know he caught a lot of footballs, but he led the league in drops in 2012 and 2013. I don't know if you remember those, but like 28 drops
I
like
don't.
between those 2 seasons. So
He also got so many targets though. And I
I
was gonna
know.
put like I said, Allen Robinson there, but I'm like, man, like I'm thinking like who do I want in the end zone? Like he caught 31 touchdowns though in those seasons. So it's like the man made it count where you needed to. I was gonna put here, and I could have gone here like a Brandon Lloyd. Like, do you remember some of the catches he would make? They were just ridiculous, and they were very sparingly for sure. But man, like some of those catches were just out. They were just crazy.
Okay, let's build my bear, because the quarterback for the Chicago Bears with his all-time Build-A-Bear is definitely going to lean my way. I think I have a few of those already in the chat. So let's get to mine. At the head, just like you, Nick, Darnell Mooney. It's just that quiet confidence that he possesses himself with. He is not a diva at the position. And I think, too, he just has that deep desire to be great, but also he doesn't need to be like the face of a team. So I really think like that's the mindset mentality that I would go with. Body, Brandon Marshall, right? He was just physically imposing, 6'5", 230 pounds. The dude was ripped. And when I was looking into this, I found a Reddit thread from the year right before Marshall's time with the Bears on Bears Reddit, going through and like 180 comments, everyone just salivating over Brandon Marshall's body. Like, look at those abs and all that. It was like, oh my gosh, but didn't expect to go down that rabbit hole, but I did. The dude is ripped. He's huge. And I think that would be a matchup problem each and every snap. And then for me at hands, I went with Marty Booker, the first Bears receiver I had the opportunity to really appreciate and watch play. As I was growing up, I kept remembering that 2001 season. I just turned 9 years old, and that was like the first season that really got me into Chicago Bears football. I don't recall Marty dropping many during that season or really any season with the Chicago Bears. Legs, like you, Nick. I went with speed, but I went a little bit further back in time and went with Willie Gault there as well, because he's like a world-class speedster. I didn't know this, but he would have been on the 1980s Olympic team for sprinting if the USA did not boycott the Olympics that year. Like, he was bound to go to the Olympics. He's also a vertical threat on the football field that would strike fear into opposing cornerbacks. And Nick, you want to hear like a crazy fun fact?
What's up?
He ran a 4.440 at the age of 50.
Jeez. That's
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah. Like, that's impressive. And he did like an older person Olympics thing and dominated as well, years ago. So definitely would go with those. And then for feet, I went with Johnny Knox, someone that, maybe I'm doubling down on speed a little bit here. So then I get like the ultra fastest receiver ever, but really like he was shifty with the football in his hands. Like, he made more people miss than I remembered when I went back and saw like what he was able to accomplish here in Chicago. So what he was able to do after the catch, and really with some of that route running too, and how he was able to like leverage his speed to kind of gain some of that separation. I was very impressed, and I wanted to throw Johnny in here somewhere. And to me, that made the most sense. So if you're in the chat right now, or if you're watching the replay after, let us know like who built the better bear at wide receiver. And Nick, I can't wait to go build other positions.
Seems like kind of strange in a way. We're taking all these like Bears just and like I'm glad actually that the graphic didn't end up working out where we're just taking weird like the pieces from each bear and actually putting them all together because I don't know, it would be like a Frankenstein kind of thing here. But it all works out. I thought that you would have had Johnny Knox at the legs. So I'm like, let me put Devin Hester here. But again, I guess you can't go wrong with the type of speed that both of those guys have. And it's crazy to think they were both on the field right at the same time. But yeah, I think I'm gonna get knocked for the body. So again, Brandon Marshall definitely fits better in terms of the full body type. But again, I went with toughness with that one. But I won't be offended if you all pick Wills for that.
I think everyone is, and it makes a lot of sense. Mason, thank you for the super chat, by the way, man. Always way too generous. But he said the obvious answer is the body of a grizzly bear, and then he threw the Office Bears beats Battlestar Galactica. Man, but you're right though. Body of a bear. Like, who's gonna mess with that?
With all that speed, it's like, oh gosh, yeah, you're done.
All right. So that was fun. If you're in the chat right now, I'll keep my eyes peeled. Let me know, or let Nick and I know, which position would you like us to do next? Maybe this could become like a Friday segment, for a while here. So let's keep building some bears. And that was a really great exercise, fun segment. Definitely would like to, go ahead and do it again. Nick, before we get to our, final segment here, I know you have another message from our great friends over at PointSpet.
Yes, if you enjoy CHGO, one way to help us continue to grow is to download the PointSpet app and use code CHGO when you sign up. Not only are you going to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000, but if you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our web content from all of our great places that you can see: Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Sox, Cubs, the Sky, all of them. You get all of that. And you'll even get a free t-shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker. If you have any questions, email PointSpet at allchgo.com and we'll help you out. And in case you missed it, online sign up is available in Illinois. You can actually download the PointSpet app right now and register your account from start to finish, all from your phone. So what are you waiting for? Once the game starts, don't just bet, live your bet life with PointSpet. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
As you know, here at CHGO, we have podcasts and live shows on every team every single day. That's why you're here with us, right now on YouTube watching this show. I'm excited for our post-game shows come the regular season. And right now with baseball in full swing, the Bulls and the Blackhawks, all these other post-game shows are just tremendous extra shows that we can kind of put your way. But I don't know if you know about our premium written content that is only for our members on allchgo.com. Not only what I, Nick, and Adam Hogue write, but our entire team, really creative work. It's work that you don't just get to see, everywhere else. It's definitely not fluff. And I think we put a lot of substance in it, which this makes me proud to be, here at CHGO. And on top of that as well, we have dope merch for all these teams. You get a free shirt when you become a member. And we have that members only Discord, the CHGO Lounge, where you can interact with us on a little bit more of a personal level. That's not Twitter. It's a little bit more private. You're in a Bears focused community, at least here for us. But if you're fans of other teams, you get to join those channels as well inside of the app. And there's just so many benefits of being a member at CHGO. I know we're looking to keep adding more along the way. So definitely go check out our website, allchgo.com, to unlock that written content by becoming a member. And if not, still be tuning in here each and every day. And Nick and I, Adam and Owen, look forward to providing you with the best daily Bears commentary out there as well. But Nick, we have another topic to get to here, another fun segment. But I was thinking about how the format of this show, maybe we should talk about the athletic article first and then end with the official third segment. You want to kind of give the lay of the land of what you read, what you saw, and then kind of set up the stage here for us.
Yeah, real quickly, I saw Matt in the comments. Don't do a QB build unless you need a quick segment. I mean, he's true, no doubt about it, Matt. That was pretty funny as I was reading that. But yes, so the athletic article I read today, it's called NFL Free Agency: Execs on the Good and Bad of All 32 Teams' Moves and Strategies. And it was written by Mike Sando, who's just a great follow on Twitter and puts out a lot of great stuff like this. So he spoke to some team executives and then shared their perspective on all 32 teams, what they've done in free agency, kind of how they're built at this point. And there's obviously a section on the Bears and what these executives kind of think about their moves thus far with first-year GM Ryan Poles and also Matt Eberflus there. The one that I think there's a quote right here that I kind of want to read off real quickly because I thought this one stood out. There's a couple little takeaways, but the quote goes, "I thought weaponry was a big part of supporting a developing quarterback." An evaluator said the back, he was mentioning Tariq Cohen, couldn't get back from surgery, and you lose Robinson. Then on defense, you put in a new scheme and dump the best players. So again, I don't know how this was said to Mike Sando, but it's almost like shots were kind of being taken on how the Bears are kind of approaching this, right? Like if you're looking to support Justin Fields, where's the support at? Where are the guys that you're supposed to be building around him? And he made some good points about the defense. Like you lose Khalil Mack, you lose Akeem Hicks. When you lose those kind of guys, you don't sign Larry Ogunjobi, you settle for Justin Jones. It's like, yeah, I could see where this evaluator is coming from. But yeah, well, I guess what were your kind of thoughts on that and just how maybe some other team executives are kind of perceiving the Bears up to this point?
It's a really interesting question. And really, I don't care how they perceive the Bears. To be completely honest, they have their perspective, they have their thoughts, and it is what it is. If those were shots, and I know you don't get the tone behind the quote, so it is hard to know exactly how it was said, I guess so be it. I understand that we haven't been able to kind of land like more weapons for Justin Fields, but when you look at what the market was this year, what you would have been paying for some of those receivers, I like the long-term approach here that Ryan Poles is kind of, going with. And we can still find a good receiver in free agency later. Like it's going to happen. Like there will be players available that can make impact. Not the biggest names, but players that can at least be serviceable, if not slightly above average. And we still haven't gotten to the draft. What if they use both second-round picks to address it? What if you get like a Christian Watson and a Sky Moore or George Pickens? Okay, like that would shut everyone up when it comes to not helping out Justin Fields. And really, we're rebuilding this thing, and you have to take it, one step at a time. It's kind of like restoring an old classic car. It was an analogy that came to me as I was, weirdly enough, in the shower today, thinking about this quote and this topic, because if you are redoing a classic car and it's rusty and the parts are all, broken, like you have to take them out and like, you're going to have to strip down the car pretty much all the way down to the studs and then find replacement parts, piece by piece. And that takes time to find the right parts, especially if you want to, have this car be exactly how it used to be, or at least a nice looking one. And if you're giving it a nice paint job too, like you have to, sand it all the way down to the core and then put primer and then paint and then coat it all back up. So it definitely steps, and it all starts with taking away before you can add. And I think it just makes sense to do this still. And I understand that maybe everyone has a different thought on how Poles is going. And I think the one quote that I do understand in it is maybe they're not as gung-ho as maximizing Fields' rookie contract because, we're on year 2 of what could be 4 or 5. I still think taking this year to recalibrate for a strong push in 2023 is still very acceptable by my standards. And I'm definitely okay with how calculated and patient we've been. As much as I would love to talk about news every single day, at least we don't have 12 tight ends and 15 kickers.
Yeah, that definitely helps. And, for the most part, I'm okay with Ryan Poles' approach through free agency. The only thing is that we just need to make sure that Ryan Poles is doing the best job that he can, even this season. And obviously, like you mentioned, the draft will, of putting the best out there to evaluate Fields to see a good evaluation of Fields, because the offensive line didn't give him time. The outside of Darnell Mooney, wide receivers weren't open. We just can't have that same exact scenario going into 2022 because they have the mindset that 2023 is going to be the season that they actually compete, are able to put a better product on the field. They just need to do better at addressing those areas. I know Lucas Patrick is here. We still need to see who plays right guard, and they still got to feel comfortable at the tackle positions with, if it's going to be Bourne and Tevin Jenkins, and then obviously the wide receiver position, you need to add some playmakers there. So if they come away feeling good in the draft, and still, like you said, they can still add players later on. Like when training camps happen, people get cut. It happens every single year. They can find some quality players there. So as long as the Bears feel like they can get a good evaluation from Justin Fields this year and then really go for it in 2023, then you can go back to like this very boring 2022 free agency period and be like, all right, I get what you're doing, Ryan Poles. That's why you're paid to be the general manager of the Bears, and we're better for it.
Patience, Poles will persevere. There we go. I wanted to come up with some, I forgot what it was, alliteration? No, whatever. My wife's an English teacher, so she's going to really be upset about
it too, but I don't.
Consonants, maybe. What is it?
Alliteration. You're right.
I should have trusted my gut. Thank you. So I do believe too, Poles has mentioned, Nick, that like the mistake a lot of GMs do are making decisions for the sake of signing people because they feel pressured to do so. Like, oh, I need a wide receiver like right now. Like we need it. So you go sign someone, you don't care about the money. Maybe the character isn't exactly what you want, but at least you can say and go back to the front office like, hey, we brought in a guy to be the receiver. I think Poles is making the correct assessment here. Like that's how GMs make mistakes. So he's right now not making mistakes. Time will tell if we look back at this offseason and the lack of push, if it was a mistake or not. I strongly believe it won't be one in time, although it is a little frustrating as a Bears fan right now. All right, Nick, let's get into this final official segment of our show today. And, Ryan Poles has also mentioned, resiliency, which is a key trait that everyone's looking for. I think he said that they're adding that to like the scouting report for like every player as well. So they're adding that to the report. Like, is this guy resilient? Can he work through adversity? Can he be someone to overcome some obstacles, some odds? Love it. Now, what you and I decided we want to do here for this final portion of the show is go back through like Bears history and like identify like a couple of players that, would have fit this mold, a player that Ryan Poles would have loved to bring in to Chicago because of that resiliency factor. Who was number one on your list?
Man, I have a couple of players on this list, but a guy that immediately came up because a lot of the players that the Bears have signed now are undrafted guys, right? So one that came up was James Big Cat Williams.
Okay.
Well, a guy that was a defensive tackle at Cheney University in Pennsylvania. Hopefully I pronounced that right, but signed by the Bears as an undrafted free agent in 1991. 2 seasons he played in the D-line rotation in Chicago before they're like, let's move him to the offensive line, where he appeared in 166 games, 143 starts, over 12 seasons, named to the Pro Bowl. So it's like, yeah, that's a guy that had a position switch, was undrafted, and hey, it would just fit too for what the Bears kind of need at the position right now, playing the tackle position. So James Big Cat Williams, who Olin Kreutz always talks about off camera too, would be, I think, a guy that Ryan Poles would identify with having that resiliency trait that they're now looking for in current Bears players.
See, I know you're just trying to butter up more to Olin. That's all it was.
Basically, yep. So he doesn't hurt me one of these days after I just, for some reason, like I have this urge to just jab him right in the ribs. But I know once I do that, it might just be 3 of you guys on the CHGO Bears podcast.
That was nice knowing you, Nick. Very first player that came to mind for me, Mike Brown. This is a player that was, unfortunately injured as much as he was healthy. His career started off really well from a health standpoint, and obviously it's just a goal playing standpoint. But we're looking at resiliency here. He played in every single game in his first 4 seasons, and what a difference maker he was for this defense. But then the injuries started happening, and they just really never seemed to stop. It was one of those where I don't think he ever played another full season in Chicago after those first 4 years. Only in one other year, he was only able to play in double-digit games. Unfortunately, like an Achilles, his calf, the Liz Frank injury, the knee, his calf again. But what I appreciate and respect Mike Brown for was the fact that he kept working his way back from these injuries every single time. And he was a leader on this defense. Players looked up to him. I don't think just his defense, but his entire football team. And I think the fact that he was able to endure those injuries and come back to them time in and time out is a testament to that warrior mentality and that overall resilience. And I'm so happy for him that he was able to come back and finish his career with a full season in Kansas City. All of us wonder what could have been if Mike Brown was able to stay healthy, but I don't think, because we were just kids, like when he was playing football, I don't think we grasped like how much hard work, disappointment, and pain like this man went through just to get back on the football field with his teammates and really to represent the Chicago Bears. Like, so much respect and so much love for a guy like Mike Brown. And the older I get, I think the more I appreciate, who he was as a player, who he was as a person, and everything that he went through throughout his career. So he was the very first player that came to mind for me. You said he had a few. What was another?
Yeah, and I want to first give a shout out to Mason here, who said Kyle Long, man, played multiple positions. And what year was it where they signed Josh Sidden, and they're like, oh, go play tackle, like a week before week 1 or something like that. I don't remember exactly what season it was, but it's like, yeah, that's a guy that did so much, played through so much on some crappy Bears teams. But yeah, you knew what you were getting out of a Kyle Long. So shout out to Mason West for bringing him up, because I think that's a really good player that would fit this as well. Another guy that kind of fits the undrafted kind of category that the Bears seem to be going for, Jay Hilgenberg, the center who played 11 seasons, 7 straight Pro Bowls. And it's crazy to think a guy that's undrafted and goes out to be as productive and one of the best at his position, like a guy like that, voted first team All Pro and appeared again in 163 games with 130 starts. So another guy that went under the radar, but ended up having an amazing career. And again, I think that fits what the Bears are currently looking for.
I like that one a lot. I went offense with my second one, and it's a different type of resiliency compared to like a Mike Brown. And I went with Thomas Jones, because number one, like the fact that his entire career is one of resilience. He played on 5 different teams and he was impactful everywhere he went. Like, this man, like, he goes to a place, he makes that offense better. I think that shows that he's resilient, playing with different teams, different coordinators, different schemes, different systems, 100%. But specifically here, he goes to Chicago in 2004. His very first season here. What does he do? He has over 1,300 total yards, 950 on the ground, 7 touchdowns. Everyone's like, all right, cool. We have our featured back. So what did the Bears do the very next offseason? They draft Cedric Benson, 4th overall. And Thomas Jones had a choice. Like, okay, either I'm going to let this rookie, take over because he was a top 5 pick, or do exactly what he did, and that was get better. He had over 400 more rushing yards the next season and 9 scores. He entered what I put in my notes, quote, slap in the face, with 5 straight seasons of 1,000 or more rushing yards for the remainder of his time in Chicago. And then also when he went to the Jets, I think for him to handle that adversity with grace, show out instead of kind of checking out, and just how strong and tough he was, and just to be an effective weapon no matter which team, which quarterback, which offensive coordinator he was playing for. Very impressed by Thomas Jones. And I think that's a huge, again, testament of the fight that he had in him, the desire to be great, as well as that ability to overcome some obstacles that kind of were thrown in his way. I'm sure he didn't expect to be a journeyman like he was. Didn't expect the Bears to draft Cedric Benson when they did, but still he was able to take his game and keep raising it up to the next level. Do you have anyone else?
Actually, another guy that I have on here, a newer player, like Bryce Callahan would be a guy that also fits. Again, undrafted out of Rice, signed in 2015 with the Bears, and made a name for himself. Got that big contract because of what he was able to do in Chicago, making the most out of his opportunity, being that nickel corner. But a guy, again, that had to work for literally everything that he got up to this point. And it's unfortunate that he has gone through some injuries, so maybe he could still show that resiliency down the road and coming back and kind of fighting through those injuries that he's dealing with. But that's, a more modern Bear that I would think kind of fits what the Bears, again, are looking to add to this roster. And, I think there was a comment earlier, like if you build a whole entire team with a lot of these guys, it's like, you're going to get every single play, every single snap, the best out of each individual, because again, that's what they've had to do to get to this point in their careers. And obviously you need to have some talent behind that as well. But I like this new trait though, that they're adding there, because you can't, I guess, measure that. It's not like a 40 or a bench press where you could see the time or the amount of reps on there. It's just what has their past been like? What are the obstacles that they've had to face, regardless if it's physical, mental, switching teams, like you were mentioning, Will? Like that's what happens in the NFL. And if you see that these players are capable of overcoming those things, man, maybe there's some success that they can have here in Chicago.
Totally agreed. I just have two more players I want to highlight before we wrap up today's show. One came into comments, and he actually was number 2 on my list. My list isn't in any particular order, just the ones that came to me. Kyle Fuller, great start to that rookie year, but then his play completely fell off, ended up hurting his knee, had to take a year off. The bust word started getting floated around here in the city. We were doing a podcast still at that time, Nick, and we had those conversations. I remember them pretty well. It didn't get much better after a 2017 season. Like when he came back from injury, it was fine, but it wasn't great. But then he had that breakout 2018 year, and he was able to kind of, be up there in the league leads for interception, make a household name for himself, go to a Pro Bowl. So for him to, he came, first round pick and balled out right away and then fizzled. Like he could have easily that's it. Oh, I'm hurt. I took a year off. Like so many things that he had to go through. And for him to bounce back like he did for that 2018 year, really, really strong example of resilience. And then I found one other different type. And that's what I love about resilience, because you can't just put skill 1 to 10. Like there's so many different types of resilience. I put Israel Adonijah as someone that throughout his time proved to be resilient, because he had to wait for an opportunity. The Bears defensive line throughout his tenure was stacked, right? Playing guys, Tank Johnson, Tommy Harris, Alex Brown, Adewale Ogunleye. He didn't get to see the field a ton early on in his career. His first 6 years, Izzy had 8 total starts, 8 sacks, 17 tackles for loss. His last 3 years in Chicago, and this is after he turned 30, 42 starts, 20 and a half sacks, and 30 tackles for a loss. Yeah, like you better believe like he was putting in the work behind the scenes the entire time that he was playing in that backup role, honing his skills, perfecting his craft, waiting for that opportunity, and working towards earning a chance to play in a more of a premier, I guess, role on that Bears defense. And, he had Lovie Smith that whole time, and he had to kind of work that way up. So I don't think he faced, any of the setbacks like some of the other players that we've mentioned, but he had to fight tooth and nail all the way up to where he was able to kind of end his career and accomplish. And when he had that chance, he took the most of it and really ended his career in Chicago at a very, very high level for a guy that barely was able to see the field early on. For again, like the first 6 years, only 8 total starts and 8 sacks. And then to almost double those in the last 3, incredible.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I see Sherrick McManus here as a comment as well. Another guy that had to, wait and got implemented the defense kind of later on in his career, but a great special teamer. But this all connects back to what Matt Eberflus was kind of saying about making a C player into a B player for guys that maybe have to wait and have to go through the system. Again, maybe that's where it all ties into bringing in these guys that play with a little bit more of a chip on their shoulder. Can we improve you to become, consistent starters in this league or on this Bears team? So we'll have to see how it all plays out. But, the Bears are building their roster with, high character guys that have something to prove. We'll see if that plays dividends and makes the Bears ultimately a better team moving forward.
You still need premier talent, but having guys on your roster that embody exactly what you just said and having them in bunches is also not a bad thing whatsoever. Nick, this was a fun show. A really strong way to end our week.
Yep. Another week here at CHGO, but thank you for everyone for tuning into all the content that we have coming out. And of course, we'll start up next week. And if anything happens over the weekend, we might have something as well. But yeah, it's a really good way to end the week.
Totally agreed. I appreciate, all of the time that, we put into today's episode specifically. I thought, again, super strong foot to kind of propel us through the weekend, get us back here to Monday where you'll have you, Olin, and Adam. I'll see everyone on my normal spot on Tuesday morning, 11 a.m. Be there. I know I will be. I'm looking forward to it. But until then, have a great weekend. Hopefully the weather turns around. And if you're already experiencing great weather, I'm jealous. But enjoy your time. We'll be back Monday. And until next time, for me, bear down, Chicago.